Now, to talk more on this, we are joined by Pawan Duggal, a cybersecurity expert. Mr. Duggal, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Let me ask you, the most obvious question here is, do we know without a doubt if these leaked documents are actually authentic?
Currently, as of today, it's hard to say whether they are authentic or not. But independent of this, there's no doubt about the fact that this entire expose raises immense amount of concerns and bigger challenges that need to be addressed. Well, it's not secret, this kind of information that's coming, but the fact that it was being done at this big scale for such a long period of time by the investigating agency is something that's immensely concerning, not just from the perspective of individual users, but also from the perspective of other sovereign nations as well. So as of now, based on information, it's clear that the CIA says they don't want to comment upon it. So the onus will be upon WikiLeaks to prove that the said documents are authentic. But independent of this, since it's a bigger issue, I think it's time that various stakeholders need to come together, specifically the sovereign governments, so as to identify now what should be the way going forward.
Well, sir, assuming if it is authentic, how damaging is this for the CIA?
Oh, if it's authentic, it's immensely damaging. I think it's far, far more damaging than the earlier Snowden revelations, because here it's not just about a violation of privacy of one or two or a group of people. Here you're looking at a systematic approach at demolishing privacy, a systematic approach of hacking into smartphones and having consistent backdoors so that they can have access to as much information. So the bigger issue will be, well, as a sovereign nation and as a sovereign agency, you will have certainly some rights. But do these rights remain in the absolute arena? Does the protection of privacy of not value? So I think we'll have to look at stuff in terms, we'll have to look at stuff of how we can balance stuff between ensuring the protection of privacy on the one hand, and also for ensuring that sovereign governments can have exercise to their own sovereign rights of interception.
Sir, of course, this once again raises the questions of the inability of the US spy agencies to protect secret documents in digital age. What's your take on this, sir?
Well, in today's digital age, nothing is secret. So if the spy agencies themselves go and spy others, they should be alive and aware of the fact that their own documents are going to be spied upon. So no wonder when these WikiLeaks documents have come up, they come in as not surprise, but the manner, the extent and the amplitude of the actions make it very, very clear that this is a much bigger kind of a conspiracy, a kind of a project that's come across. And it's high time now that governments of the world now need to engage at the international level. Please understand, as of today, we don't have an international cyber law in place. So consequently, there is no specific legal regime which can actually go ahead and regulate the activities of sovereign nations. So as we go forward, it's not just an issue of breach of privacy, it's a massive issue of breach of cyber security of the mobile phones of these innocent, trusting users who trusted their devices thinking that they are safe. So when the government agencies use backdoors for accessing the same, it leads to a much bigger question. What should be the role of stakeholders, especially states, today in a scenario when expectations for privacy are increasingly going towards the increasing trend? Now, we have cases like Apple standing up for the privacy of the users and saying that, look, we are locking horns with the FBI because privacy is more important. But a lot of private companies are not doing so. A lot of them are bending backwards in order to so-called satisfy or please some of these spy agencies. So going forward, it's imperative that internationally we must have norms of behavior for nation states so that this kind of activity should be minimized to the barest extent possible in the coming times.
Sir, of course, among other disclosures that, if confirmed, it would rock the technology world. I mean, the WikiLeaks release has said that smart TVs from Samsung are actually being used as listening devices. Sir, what's your take on this? Because if that's true, then these are very unsettling times that we're living in.
There is no denying the fact that these are very unsettling times with the Internet of Things coming in and with the majority of the Internet of Things devices, including smart TVs, being used as listening devices, it's time to work on the cyber security parameters for the devices that are connecting to the Internet using the Internet of Things paradigm. In today's scenario, when we're looking at 50 billion devices to be connected to the Internet by 2020, not much work has been done on the cyber security aspect and on enabling legal frameworks which can actually regulate the misuse or abuse of these kind of devices which are being used as listening devices. I think internationally, not much work is happening. A lot of work needs to be done on the legal, policy and regulatory issues pertaining to Internet of Things. But more significantly, till all of that time happens, the onus is now going to be back on the individual user. He or she will have to consciously do due diligence and take steps to the extent that whatever they can do to protect their privacy, they should do that. They should be extremely diligent while picking up connected smart devices, and more significantly, we only need to rely upon those devices after we've done a due diligence to ensure that they do not have adequate or appropriate backdoors in the same. So a lot of work needs to be done in this regard.
So also let me ask you, how much have companies like Samsung compromised themselves and their customers? I mean, will Samsung and Google have to answer for that to the markets and their consumer?
I think companies are playing with fire. If they have acted as tools or instruments in the hands of spy agencies, they have to be now prepared to face the brunt of fire, because whether it's going to be markets, whether it's going to be users, they are going to be unforgiving. At the end of the day, the entire technology edifice and the pyramid is based on trust, upon confidence. And if these kind of companies who are often providing backend and listening enabling platforms for spy agencies are doing these activities surreptitiously without disclosing the same either to the respective stakeholders or to the users, I think they have to be prepared for a backlash. Now, how that backlash happens is hard to predict, but people are now going to get learning their lessons very quickly. Their privacy, whatever little remains, must be studiously and consciously protected at every possible extent. And I think if that means going ahead and rejecting certain products or services of companies who have lined up with the spy agencies, this would be one of the legitimate approaches that a lot of users would be adopting.
So do you think that these leaked documents will at least pose the question of whether the CIA is following the rules and whether these rules need to be in fact changed?
Quickly, we have to realize that there are no international rules per se. We don't yet have an international convention or a treaty on cyber law. That's why since 2015, I've advocated in the WSIS forum at Geneva and otherwise that there's a need for the world to have in place an international convention on cyber law and cyber security law, because this is the urgent need of the times. And I've actually been advocating that given these difficult times where negotiating a treaty will be difficult, let's start with basics. Let's look at common minimum denominators of international best practices that countries are agreeing upon. And let that be the starting point for countries to evolve norms of behavior in cyberspace. It's a wild, wild west, definitely. But users are now being very unforgiving. And these users are not going to forgive those companies who would be seen to be acting as tools of oppression and listening in the hands of spy agencies. So going forward, countries need to work together, come up and evolve the norms of behavior in cyberspace. And one norm that's clearly unacceptable is having in place appropriate backdoors, which can allow you access to information that you can legitimately not have too. So interception and monitoring and decryption are important sovereign tools, but clearly the usage of the same will have to be balanced given the counter initiatives and interests of protecting civil liberties and individual privacy, as also protection of cybersecurity on the other hand.
Okay, Mr. Duggal, thank you so much for your interesting perspective there. We leave it there for the time being. And with that, we're taking a very short break, but more news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned.